My name is Meghan Efland. I am running for Ward 4 Town Council for Chestertown. I officially moved into Chestertown a little over 5 years ago when we bought a house on Campus Avenue. But before that, I grew up just outside of Chestertown. I've lived here almost my entire life. I went to St. Mary's College and I studied sociology and anthropology. And since then, I've taken classes in engineering and financial accounting and foreign trade, which relates to my current position. I have worked at Paul Reed Smith Guitars for 15 years. Originally, when I started out, I worked in human resources and safety. So I was responsible for MOSHA and OSHA compliance, so federal and state compliance with our safety regulations. So I wrote policies, procedures, and training manuals for the facility. And currently, I am the director of supply chain. So after taking the role in human resources and safety, I moved into a procurement position. And it was right at the time where we went from our 30,000 square foot building into an expansion that made our total square footage 90,000 square feet. So I worked with contractors and I helped out with all of the facilities details. So compressed air, electrical systems, new workbenches, everything that you can imagine to move into the new facility. And currently, as director of supply chain, I manage a team of 18 people. We're responsible for procurement for the facility. We're responsible for import and export and federal and state trade compliance. We are also responsible for the warehouse. We do shipping and receiving, inventory control, and we have master scheduling for the facility. So when I started working at PRS, we had about 100 employees, and we now have over 350 employees. And with that increase, there's just been so much more going on, so much more involvement. I am responsible for part of the budget. So we have a product development team that looks out on the 5-year strategic plan. We look at capital expenses, new products that we're going to launch, the costs and capital that's going to be required to implement those projects. We work with marketing and our sales team to make sure that there's demand for those products and that we're able to meet the supply for those demands. And we implement the plan and make sure that the product ends up being profitable and works in our culture for what we're trying to sell. So I have been with my same partner, Mark Quigley, for a little over 10 years. And we have 2 stepsons. They're in their mid-20s, Aiden and Connor. Aiden lived with us from the age of 13 until he was 21, the fun time. And my parents live outside of Church Hill. As I said, I grew up in this area. And I have a brother and sister-in-law that live in Centerville. And they have 2 young children, and I'm very involved with their lives. I decided to run for council. I guess it was about this time 2 years ago. I live right on the ward boundary between 1 and 4, and I would see David Foster riding his bicycle with his political signs, and I started really following Owen and David's campaigns. So I read everything that I could. I went to hear them speak. And I started thinking about Owen, and Owen's only a little bit younger than me, and I just kept thinking, I wonder what has made him want to run. And I know that his mother was the mayor and things like that, and he's been involved from a young age, but it just really got into my mind. And I started going to town budget meetings and different council meetings when they were topics that affected me. And I noticed that the council is all a bit older, let's say. So my group of friends, I'm 38 years old. A lot of them went to Washington College and decided to stay in this area. We've all talked about how do we get more people our age into these neighborhoods and sort of get more families moving to Chestertown. And I think that there's a good mix of retirees, but the younger age, as we've seen in the school populations, is declining. And so what do we do to get more people into town? And I think that running for council and being a voice for that group of people is important. I think we need to have some more diversity that is serving on the council. So as of Friday at 5 o'clock, I found out that I am unopposed for this position. And I'm not totally surprised in talking to people with Marty announcing that he wasn't going to run. I haven't heard of anybody else speaking up that they were interested. I had a group of friends that live in the area that were asking me to run. And so there just wasn't anybody else out there. My plans as we get closer to the election on November 5th are to continue canvassing and meet as many people I can in the ward and hear their opinions and what they're looking for from a council representative. My background, as I was saying before, is in supply chain. I work for a business and I do a significant portion of budget planning. I've done facilities purchasing, I work in operations, and I've also worked with a diverse group of people, pooling those ideas and trying to compromise and come to the best solution. And I think that that directly relates to town council. Over the next few years, I think key issues are the budget. Going to the town and county budget meetings, it's obvious that we have flat revenues while our costs are increasing. So for me, I'm interested in working with the Maryland Municipality League and also with the Main Street organization, reaching out to other communities that are similar to us, looking at how they've dealt with similar problems, how they are using their budget, how the percentages are laid out amongst the different expenditures that they have for the town, and comparing them to what we're doing. I am a firm believer that when you look at other people that have similar problems, a lot of solutions have already presented themselves and we can use those same solutions. I think also the infrastructure of the town is a concern as we're talking about a tight budget. Our town is beautiful, it's historic, it's charming, but along with that goes all the maintenance with it. So you have older buildings, we have an older sewer and water treatment system, and we need to be thinking about long-term, if something happens in those facilities maintenances, how are we going to be able to afford to remedy those issues? So other issues I think that we need to deal with are increasing income into the town. So I think looking at the marina management, what we can do to make that start generating more income. I think also working with local businesses that are already established and opening ourselves more to new businesses coming in. I think there are things like the high-speed internet project that the county has been working on, really pushing that forward. And there's simple things like areas of town that do not have cell service, and how do we partner with different cell phone companies and things like that, or cell phone providers, to increase our ability to communicate in the town.